Today is Monday, April 18th. It's 7:30 p.m. and this is the general meeting of Lakewood City Council. Happy Tax Day. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in a moment of silence. Madam Clerk.
Anderson.
Present.
Kolick.
Here.
Litton.
Here.
Marks. Here. Nowlin. O'Leary.
Here.
O'Malley.
Here.
I would move that we excuse the absence of Mr. Nowlin, who, in addition to being unable to attend tonight, expresses his very sincere and profound thanks to everyone for their ongoing support.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, that motion passes.
Reading and disposal of the minutes of the regular meeting of council held April 4th, 2016.
Move to dispose of the minutes without the necessity of a reading.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, that motion passes. At this point, without objection, I would move that we read item 13 first.
Item 13, Keep Lakewood Beautiful Awards presentation.
I believe we're joined tonight by the Keep Lakewood Beautiful board members, Chair Ruth Gillette, I believe, as well as a number of folks from the community who have been recognized.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Ruth Gillette, and on behalf of the Keep Lakewood Beautiful Board, I'd like to thank you for providing time tonight for KLB to present the 2015 Beautiful Home Awards. KLB's mission is to support efforts that enhance the natural beauty of our city. In addition to the Beautiful Home Awards, there are 4 projects that we currently support. The Adopt a Spot program, which was playing on it's not there anymore, but it was going as you were having your other meeting. The annual Earth Day cleanup event, which will be Saturday, April 30th at City Center. The spring humus sale, which provides home gardeners an opportunity to purchase the best darn humus ever for a very low price of $4 a bag. And the humus sale will be on Saturday, May 14th. And then the KLB Tree Committee, which is focused on the reforestation and appropriate stewardship of Lakewood trees. So KLB is a small group with limited resources, and by acknowledging the efforts of private citizens who create and maintain beauty with their own properties through the Beautiful Home Awards program, KLB hopes to encourage community awareness and pride of place. So tonight, we are here to celebrate and thank the winners for their efforts. You are probably wondering, how does this program work? Well, I'll tell you. Homes are nominated through an open community process. Eventually, 7 homes are chosen, 1 in each of the 7 elementary school attendance areas. In 2015, over 70 home nominations were submitted to KLB. The nominations are then honed down to 2 homes per area and judged by the KLB board members, Lakewood Alive staff, and a professional landscaper. So Mayor Summers has agreed to assist in the award ceremony, giving the plaques to the winners. And to the winners, as you are introduced, please come up to receive your award, which is an attractive plaque, which can be mounted on your property. All right. So the first, District 1, is Ann and Don Steiner. Their address is 1212 Granger. So the Steiners have lived in their home for 17 years. During that time, they've rebuilt the front porch and vaulted the porch ceiling, and they have each been gardening their whole lives. Don learned landscaping from his grandfather, and Ann from having worked at a garden center during college. Their advice to gardeners is, don't be afraid to ask questions. It's good advice. all the time. And they volunteered that they love Lakewood. Thank you, Ann and Don. So District 2 goes to Andrew and Stefania Bajanak and Ann Rusnak, 1124-26 Summit Avenue. This is an amazing story of a Lakewood double occupied by the owners, Andrew and Stefania, and their tenant, Ann Rusnak, collaborating to create a truly beautiful landscape. Ann loves gardening, and with the blessing of Stefania and Andrew, has created a beautiful and car-stopping landscape. The plants were provided by the Bajanaks, family members, and friends. Ann has expressed that gardening is an activity that provides her with a sense of peace and well-being. Thank you. District 3 is Adrian and Greg Good. They live at 1488 Parkway. And Melissa's going to advance that to, there we go. The Goods have lived in their home for 6 years, having moved to Cleveland from Arizona. That's quite a landscape change. Adrian said that they really did not know what they were doing, but through help from neighbors, yard professionals, and Cahoon's Nursery, they are learning more every year. They have made many interior renovations and improvements as well. Their advice is very sound. Don't seek perfection, enjoy the small victories. Thank you. So District 4 is Tim Kay and Robert Gallagher, 1488 Bell. Tim and Robert are 30-year residents of Lakewood with the last 13 years at the Bell Avenue address. The home was built in 1913, and they are only the third owners. They've transformed their backyard into an outdoor living space that includes a patio with a pergola, an outdoor bar, water feature, and furniture surrounded by beautiful gardens, garden beds, and shrubs. And after hearing this description, I thought that we should all plan on meeting at their backyard patio, say Memorial Day, 4th of July. I don't have any plans. Tim and Robert say they've always loved gardening and enjoy redesigning their landscapes each year. Their advice is keep loving and improving your gardens. District 5 is Carol Wilson, 2231-33 Northland Avenue. This is another owner-occupied two-family property that just exudes pride of place. Carol has lived on Northland for 30 years, and she's committed to environmentally sound gardening practices that support the birds and bees and maintain nature's balance. No pesticides. Carol learned gardening from her grandfather starting when she was only 4 years old. Her advice to other gardeners is keep trying, don't give up. If one plant doesn't work, another will. As we were having the reception tonight, Carol shared with me that she's actually sold her home. But I said, oh no, the new owners have to maintain the garden, and she said that a neighbor bought it, and yes, they are going to, so that's great. District number 6, Bill and Laura Cannon, 2090 Baxterly. The Cannons have lived on Baxterly for 25 years. They've recently replaced their garage and have planted lilacs and a red twig dogwood tree. Laura also started gardening at a young age after attending a gardening class during a 2nd grade summer camp. Laura's garden advice is to plant native flowers and perennials, but don't be afraid to try something new.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Cindy and Jake Marks, 1587 Grace. So the Markses have resided on Grace for 24 years. Cindy has had a lifelong love of gardening and flowers, which is very evident in the beauty of their home and yard. In the 90s, Jake and Cindy planted bamboo in their backyard and have been trying to de-bamboo since then. So if anyone needs bamboo for that home tiki bar, let Cindy and Jake know. They'll share what they have.
Thank you.
So this This concludes the 2015 award ceremony. The 2016 nomination process will soon start. There's one more slide that gives you information about how to make nominations for the Beautiful Home Award. And we thank you very much for giving us this time tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. We're certainly all very appreciative of the efforts of KLB to recognize the outstanding work that so many homeowners in Lakewood are doing, and of course we're also appreciative of that work itself. It's really a tremendous asset to our city, and I know that we all enjoy very much driving by and walking by those houses and taking it all in. I would ask, I guess, that we call our next agenda item unless there's additional comment from council. Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Item 1, Committee of the Whole report regarding April 18, 2016 committee meeting.
Thank you. Committee of the Whole met immediately prior to our meeting this evening. There were 4 items on the agenda. We did not do a procedural review of the agenda. However, we did discuss the other 3 items. Proposed ordinance 2-16, which deals with the sign code and has been discussed a couple of times, was recommended for adoption this evening with a note that there remains some implementation or an implementation issue for which additional information will be provided from the law department. Next was proposed resolution 8853-16. This deals with in a resolution supporting an agreement with the Board of Education for fiber optic cable to various board facilities, and also eliminating a payment made by the city to the Board of Education for TV studio access. That resolution was discussed and also recommended for adoption this evening. Finally, we had a communication from Mayor Summers regarding the Health and Wellness Foundation. We were this evening able to hear from Mayor Summers tonight, and we will schedule an additional meeting for council's deliberation in depth on that topic. I would ask that this report be received and filed.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion to receive and file that Committee of the Whole report? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, that motion passes.
Item 2, Ordinance 216, an ordinance to amend various sections within Chapter 1329, signs of the codified ordinances and other sign-related sections in order to update the code.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Move to adopt as substituted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on that motion to adopt as substituted? Mr. Chair. Yes, Councilman Bullock.
Just one word. I think we need to substitute first and then.
Correct. Move to substitute the revised version of ordinance 2-16.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion to substitute? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Anderson?
Yes.
Bullock?
Yes.
Litton?
Yes.
Marks?
Yes.
O'Leary?
Yes,
O'Malley?
Yes.
that motion passes. I move to adopt
Second.
as substituted. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion of the motion to adopt as substituted? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, I'm sorry, we need a roll call on that vote as well.
Anderson?
Yes.
Bullock?
Yes.
Litton?
Yes.
Marks?
Yes.
O'Leary?
Yes.
O'Malley?
Yes.
And that motion passes.
Item 3, Resolution 88.
Mr. Chairman, I signed in to speak on this topic.
So you did. My apologies.
Generally, it's good to speak before people vote. The reason I signed in is because a lot of changes I think were needed in this, but I haven't looked at this real thoroughly, but I am interested in 1329.12, the application for permits. And B1 talks about the design and layout proposed, including the total area of signs, the size, height, character, materials, colors, and type of lettering or other symbols. This is about content, which the mayor during your meeting talked about a Supreme Court case that concerns limiting content. This is all subjective stuff, and it's all about content and really shouldn't be part of this ordinance. The one other thing I'd like to address is the number 5D, it's the bottom item there. All signs shall be approved by the Board of Building Standards. This is I think for people trying to start up businesses in Lakewood, is an unreasonable thing. These boards meet once a month, and you have to make applications to them weeks in advance. So a business could take a couple of months trying to get a sign for their new business approved. And really, what they tend to be looking at is things that are of the nature of that paragraph 1, which is content, which is inappropriate. I would propose that the building commissioner, who would be looking at the objective things such as the size of the sign and that sort of thing, would be an adequate thing for anti-signs. The city has no business getting into things like content, which is what that paragraph 1 is all about. I mean, the size and character, materials, colors, all that stuff is subjective things that the city has no business poking its nose into. And so I would propose that since you've already passed this, without putting it on a third reading, that you consider amending this. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just clarify as a point of order that it has been read 3 times, and also that size in particular is the very definition of an objective measure. There's nothing subjective about measurements. But in any case, I appreciate the comments. We'll move on to item number 3.
Item 3, Resolution 885316, a resolution to enter into an agreement with the Board of Education of the Lakewood City School District to authorize the connection of the public school buildings to the fiber optic network that is currently under construction within the city of Lakewood.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion on this motion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, that motion passes.
Item 4, Finance Committee report regarding ordinance 3215A.
Councilman Bullock.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. The Finance Committee met today and recommended, heard and agreed to the changes in the proposed substitute, which were in the nature to rectify a typo. There was no substantive change. So the committee recommended incorporating those changes in our legislative motions tonight. Move to receive and file that oral report.
Second, any discussion on the motion to receive and file that report? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, that motion passes.
Item 5, ordinance 3215A, an ordinance to amend ordinance 3215 adopted November 2nd, 2015, to provide for creating positions and rates of pay for full-time and certain part-time annual salaried employees and hourly rate employees not covered by a collective bargaining agreement in the several departments, divisions, and offices for the city of Lakewood, including the chief of fire, chief of police, and civil service commissioners.
Move to substitute.
Second, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion to substitute? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Anderson?
Yes.
Bullock?
Yes.
Litton?
Yes.
Marks?
Yes.
O'Leary?
Yes.
O'Malley?
Yes.
And that motion passes.
Move to adopt.
Second, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Anderson?
Yes.
Bullock?
Yes.
Litton?
Yes.
Marks? O'Leary?
Yes.
O'Malley?
Yes.
And that motion passes.
Item 6, Public Works Committee report regarding Resolution 886416.
Councilman Bullock.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Standing in as acting chair this evening for Mr. Nowlan, whose absence has been excused. Tonight, the Public Works Committee met to hear deliberation on Resolution 8864-16, a resolution to enter into a contract with the state of Ohio for new and improved signals along Hilliard Road and Franklin Boulevard. This is the final phase of a multi-phase traffic signal replacement and improvement project that spanned ever since I've served on council. First Detroit Avenue and Clifton Avenues, and then last year Madison Avenues, and now this final major east-west corridor. The committee recommended substitute version of tonight's ordinance that would reduce the cost to the city by about $70,000 to $441,118, which is approximately 20% of the total cost of the project, which is around $2.1 million. The only change in the actual configuration of lights is one at the western end of the city, Hilliard and North Marginal, where the traffic counts did not warrant maintaining or retaining that signal according to state levels of traffic, according to state definitions of what's warranted. Public Works Director reported on a multi-month implementation of applying a blinking red there with the lane reconfiguration to ensure that morning rush hour traffic could safely allow for the removal of that one light, and there were no problems, so that's what's incorporated in the proposal before us tonight. So, with that, I move to receive and file that oral report.
Second, any discussion on that motion to receive and file? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, that motion passes.
Item 7, Resolution 886416, a resolution appropriating the estimated sum of $509,754 for and authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement which will allow the city to participate in the upgrade and interconnection of traffic signals along Hilliard Road and Franklin Boulevard in the city with the Ohio Department of Transportation.
Move to substitute.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to substitute? Hearing none, all those, Madam Clerk?
Anderson?
Yes.
Bullock?
Yes.
Litton?
Yes.
Marks? O'Leary?
Yes.
O'Malley?
Yes.
And that motion passes. Move to adopt as substituted.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Anderson?
Yes.
Bullock?
Yes.
Litton?
Yes.
Marks?
Yes.
O'Leary?
Yes.
O'Malley?
Yes.
And that motion passes.
Item 8, Rules and Ordinances Committee report regarding Ordinance 1516 and Resolution 886116.
Councilman Litton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Rules and Ordinances Committee met this evening to discuss two items. One was Ordinance 15-16, amending 557.05 of the codified ordinances related to application fees, that they be non-refundable because of the city's actual costs in accepting those applications. This relates to special event permits, things like parades, 5Ks, events where the streets are closed, things of that sort. The city's done a few years of tracking on this, and given the expense the city takes on just in determining when and how to put on these events, it seemed to make sense for the city to keep that fee and not refund it where the event was not, canceled in a fair amount of time. The committee did recommend adoption of a substituted version. The substitution only adjusted what?
Law Director Butler, do you happen to recall what
There was just a,
Yes, Mr. Chair,
sorry.
pardon me. In Ordinance 1516, Section 55705, there was a suggestion that the city waive permit fees for one particular summertime event that's city-sponsored, and we took measures to draft some language that the committee approved, authorizing the Director of Public Safety to waive special event permit fees for appropriate city-sponsored events in the Director of Public Safety's discretion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Director Butler, the committee did move to recommend adoption of the substituted ordinance. And then next was Resolution 8861-16, creating a volunteer police officer dependent fund board as established by the Ohio Revised Code. This applies to our Lakewood auxiliary police officers, similar to one already in existence for volunteer firefighters. And the committee recommended to defer this only so that we could come up with 2 suitable candidates for that committee. Motion to, or move to receive and file that.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to receive and file that oral report. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, that motion passes.
Item 9, ordinance 1516, and ordinance amending section 55705, fees of the codified ordinances of the city to reflect that the application fee shall not be refundable as the city's actual cost in accepting and processing any permit application, along with the minimal services required for any special event permit exceed the application fee.
Move to substitute.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to substitute? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Anderson.
Yes.
Bullock.
Yes.
Litton.
Yes.
Marks.
Yes.
O'Leary.
Yes.
O'Malley.
Yes.
That motion passes. I move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to adopt? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Anderson.
Yes.
Bullock.
Yes.
Litton.
Yes.
Marks.
Yes.
O'Leary.
Yes.
O'Malley.
Yes.
And that motion passes.
Item 10, Resolution 886116, a resolution creating the Volunteer Peace Officer Dependent Fund Board for the purpose of assisting in the review and determination of validity of claims made under the Volunteer Peace Office Dependent Fund established by ORC Chapter 143 for death or disability of a volunteer peace officer and naming 2 appointees to the board.
Move to defer.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, that motion passes.
Item 11, Ordinance 2416, and ordinance to amend Section 113309, demolition or removal of residential structures.
You'll all recall that this particular ordinance, 24-16, is largely ministerial correction, and as such has been not referred to committee. However, tonight is the second reading. I move to defer.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, that motion passes.
Item 12, communication from Councilmember Litton regarding appointing Dana Texters to Lakewood Animal Safety and Welfare Advisory Board.
Councilmember Litton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dear colleagues, I write today to appoint Dana Textoris to the Lakewood Animal Safety and Welfare Advisory Board. I've come to know Dana as an engaged Lakewood neighbor who is highly qualified for and committed to the goals of this vital board. I'm sure that she will serve all of Lakewood well in this position, and as such, I ask for council's favorable consideration of her nomination. Yours in service. Motion to, or move to receive and file.
Second. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, adding my congratulations. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, that motion passes.
Item 14, communication from Finance Director Pay regarding Meridian Shoreline Protection Project, report of Board of Revision of Assessments.
Director Pay.
Thank you. The attached correspondence is the letter that serves as the report of the Board of Revision of Assessments per the charter that met on April 6th here in the auditorium regarding the Meridian Shoreline Protection Project for the construction of a revetment. The board found no reason to adjust any amounts appearing in the initial assessment report, which is now on file in the Office of City Council. Upon deliberation by unanimous vote, the board voted to make a finding that the project is a necessary public improvement, and then the board adjourned. The final assessment ordinance should be introduced at the next council meeting. We're just verifying the final costs of the project so it can go forward. and be before council. Sincerely.
Thank you for that update. Move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes. That brings us to the end of our docket for this evening. Prior to any announcements from the administration or council, we will turn to our public comment. A number of folks have signed in to speak this evening, the first of which is Tom Yanks.
Tom Yanks, 17452 Norton Avenue. I would like to wait for Mr. O'Malley to come back.
Sure. Well, do we know what, okay. All right. Is Edie, is Lynette Edie here?
Yes.
I apologize for taking speakers out of order.
Well, he knows what's going on with me, so that's fine. I am the chairperson of Lakeshore Towers, 12506 Edgewater Drive, and I have been bringing people here so you can hear about what's going on with the bed bugs. But what has really been going on now is intimidation. And one reason I'm being intimidated is because I'm standing up. And management actually came into our meeting. The manager, all three of them tried to come in. He actually got in my face, kicked me in my toe, and I had to go to the hospital because I have post-traumatic stress. And he triggered me all over because he's 6'2", something like that. And so now it's intimidation. I'm not going away. However, because I'm going through my post-traumatic stress, I forgot to sign up someone, so I want to share my 5 minutes with her. Because we'll keep coming until you hear us well.
Thank you. Your name and address for the record, please.
Maureen Kunz, Lakeshore Towers, a familiar location, 12506 Edgewater Drive. I am one of the multitude of tenants in this building that have bed bugs. I am 72 years old. I have never had bed bugs anywhere that I lived, however I lived. It is my humble, honest, adamant opinion, it is a building problem. They're trying to blame it on the tenants. No way, Jose. This is a building problem, and now it's my turn. The blasted things came into my place. It is a very upsetting, disgusting experience, and something you want to talk about in public, not at all. But I would like, while I'm here, nice to see you, Tony, and Dan wrote a splendid letter, which I'm sure everybody in Lakewood received a copy of, and then some, and thank you. And both Tony and Dan came to our tenants meeting. This is just so disgusting and upsetting, you know, and I'm here out of respect for Lynette because she's working so hard for us on this problem. But I really wanted to come and talk in public like that. Not at all. I'm done.
Thank you. Appreciate those comments. Our next, we'll return to Mr. Yanks.
So again, Tom Yanks, 17452 Norton Avenue. Want to talk a little bit about I've been reading in the paper about the bans or the relaxing of the bans of the certain breeds, specifically the pit bulls, and that the laws might be changing on those. I'm here tonight to ask you not to change the law, in fact, strengthen the law to make it more difficult for people to bring pit bulls into Lakewood. On my street, there's a 6-year-old boy, little boy, was mauled by a dog. If the adult wasn't there to pull that dog off, I am confident that that dog would have killed that kid. It's a terrible thing, and I've been reading in the articles where it's these sweet dogs and people don't understand them. They're vicious dogs. It would have killed this little boy. This poor family's had to live through it. The other two little boys are traumatized by it. I speak for a number of my neighbors. They'd be glad to come here and speak to you about this as well. Mr. O'Malley, I understand that you're maybe heading up some of the changes or looking into the changes. I would ask you to make sure that you look at both sides of the issue and don't be swayed by a few loud voices. It's something that needs to be addressed, and again, I would ask you to strengthen these laws as opposed to relax them. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next signed up speaker is Sharisa Morris. Sorry about that.
Hi everybody, my name is Sharisa Morris, and I am a former America Vista that was working at Cleveland Tennis Organization. I have been collaborating with Lynette E., Miss Tony, Mr. Dan, trying to resolve some of the issues that was going on at Lakeshore Tower and concerning the bed bugs. Initially, when I first started working in the building, I needed to kind of figure out whether or not it was a building-wide problem, or are we talking just a few individuals that had some issues. And upon my survey I conducted, I found that this was a massive building-wide problem where more than 50% of the residents have experienced them dating all the way back to 2006. So these things are probably in the walls. Don't quote me on that, but they're probably in the walls, and what they're doing wrong in the building is they're bestowing the cost onto the residents without proper cause. When you have a situation that goes on that amount of years, how can you be with 100% absolute certainty that the resident is the problem? So I wanted to come to the council with the residents of Lakeshore Towers to speak with you guys basically about the problem and let you know, look into the building, maybe push some building codes on them. From what I understand, I do believe they are in direct opposition of what your ordinance is, and put some force behind the building to make them take care of the problem, because what they're doing is wrong. You have residents who are low income. I don't care what your socioeconomic status is, but when you live in a situation where something is crawling on you in the middle of the night, biting on you, and you can't afford to pay for extermination, it is really upsetting, which is why I took a personal interest in the case. And that's pretty much what I wanted to come here and tell you guys today. I thank you for your time and your listening, and I hope you guys be very progressive on the issue and move forward with maybe some progressive, hard force enforcement on the bed bug situation. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that this evening. Our next speaker is Michael Stannard. Standard? Michael Standard? Okay.
Okay, I'm going to say this.
Okay. Ma'am.
They are afraid. This is the intimidation I'm talking about.
Okay, I'm sorry to hear that. I don't think that anyone should obviously be intimidated, and that's very unfortunate.
Did you call Frank?
The next speaker signed up is Frank. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Standard, have you elected to speak, or?
No.
No? Okay. Then the next speaker is Frank Sunbury. Thank you for being willing to speak tonight, Mr. Sunbury.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. O'Leary. First time we met in my building. 16 years I lived at the Lakeshore Towers, and gradually some really underhanded stuff has been going on. But this last thing has just brought me over Yesterday, I had to go to emergency, Lakewood, fantastic hospital, emergency grade. I'm 75, and I had AFib and a bleeding problem. Well, I already had done this moving for the bed bugs. I'm not embarrassed to say, yes, I have bed bugs, and I came out, and all of a sudden, other people followed suit, which was excellent. There was a lot more than we actually thought there was. I thought it was just a few of us, and they want us to make us look like we had brought them in. Well, it was an ongoing problem, which I never knew about, 16 years. Well, today we had a run-in with the assistant manager. I was scheduled for 9 o'clock for them to come for that second checkup. I called them, I stood out there. First we'll go back to the hospital thing. One of the items which I had to move by myself fell on my head. Now I have to be very careful because of clots and so on and so forth. Lakewood did a fantastic, the hospital for years, I've been going there, me and my mother. And I'm from the east side, brought her over because it's excellent for seniors. I don't want to get into the whole stories. But I went over there yesterday and received excellent service. Right away had a CAT scan, there was no bleeding, just a little bit of the neck pain from that. And as I said, I was appointed to have them come over my apartment at 9 o'clock. I stood up and I set my alarm for 4 o'clock and prepared myself so I could have everything the way they wanted. And this accident happened yesterday. I got the clearance, good. I walked out singing like a lark. They treat me a little better. For some reason, I don't know. Maybe it's a little extra pizza I send to them, you know? Like a little bribe. It's not my intention. If you're doing a good job, thank you. I'm going to show you my appreciation. And I did so with this. And, give me a minute to catch. I got the clearance, and this, after having a little problem with this assistant manager saying, no, they were coming at 1 o'clock. I said, I'm sorry, this is the second time you pulled that on me. My time is just as important as you. I'm nobody, but I have appointments. I'm elderly. I have 7 doctors, and this is the God's truth. They're all from Lakewood Hospital, associated with them. And this thing got me going. I have a very good friend who's my guardian. I called him up immediately. I thought, this is the second time something hit me on the head. I can't fool with it. And he came down, saving the taxpayer $700 and some odd dollars for an ambulance ride, because I don't believe in that. And then I will get a bill. I usually will walk. I have heart problems, or many times when I had the chest pain, I went by foot or bus and got there, saving taxpayer $7, whatever it is. Well, we got that straightened out because I'm with the county Medicare program and Medicaid. Medicare, Medicaid. Well, yesterday got the clearance, felt fine, and went back and had to look out for the signs that they told me to, because it could go into a concussion, and we all know the story about concussions recently with football players. All right, I'm a little nervous now because I get excitable, because I have anxiety. Now, to get in that building, you have to have a little bit of disturbance mentally, from what I understand. And I was told, what is your problem? And I said, I have anxiety. Wow, I got in right away. Nice little cubicle. You will get a nice place in 7 months. That 7 months turned out to be 3 years. I was going around in circles. I actually wrote a letter to Mr. Schau. Got to talk to him. It's like trying to get a hold of Pope Francis. Well, I got through all right, thanks to the operator. And he came, he corrected the problem. He came over and gave that. I've gone through 8 or 9 different managements that were at the building. This is what I thought was going to be the best of them, because they did some improvements, I have to say, but I didn't see the other side of this story, where it's going to make me look like I brought these bed bugs in. I was not charged. Today I forgot the final clearance. You're clear of bugs. I'm free. Well, now I'm going to worry about these people that I was never charged, but some of these people are being charged, and they can't afford it. Even $1 is so important for them, for their meal. Why are they being charged if I'm understanding that you don't charge the tenant if it's over so many. There's like two.
Mr. Sundry, I'm terribly sorry to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
we do have a 5-minute time limit on
Oh,
public
okay, I'll
comment.
get off, but I'm clear so far. I want to see what's going to be the follow-up, because I think they're running a little bit on the scared side. But I'm clear, but I want everybody else to
Thank you.
speak to.
We
Thank
do
you.
appreciate your
Thank
comments.
you.
Thanks. Our next speaker is Stephen Gass.
I can only tell my story. That's about what I know.
I'm sorry, Mr. Gass, we do need you to just state your name and address.
Stephen Gass. I just moved to Lakeshore Towers about 3 years ago. I live in a little cubic, like he stated. I was there for a year and a half, and one night, about 1 o'clock in the morning, some lady came to my door, and I kind of knew her from the building, and talked to her a couple of times here and there. I'm a little shaky because I'm not used to standing up in front of people. But anyway, she comes to my door, and she asked for my help. And I said, sure, Becky, what do you need? And I said, well, why don't you come on in and sit down a minute? She says, can you call 911 for me? I said, why? Was something wrong? What's going on? She said she had bad reflux. And I says, yeah, I guess I can. So I noticed on her body that she had bed bugs. So I said, Becky, you're gonna have to wait outside. So the next day, I went down to management and told them about it. And then, like 3 days later, they come up to my place and told me I had to leave because they had to fumigate it. And I was charged $560 for it. So, here to find out, I ended up finding out that this lady died. And she was a very good person. But this is what's going on at Lakeshore Towers. That's my story.
Thank you.
Thank you
for
very much.
sharing that. Our next speaker is Barb Coleman.
I'm Barbara Coleman, 14916 Arden Avenue. We have lived in Lakewood for almost 60 years. My husband's grandparents built a home here on Wader Avenue about 1905. We have a long history with Lakewood. My husband Bill taught biology at Lakewood High School for 27 years, and I was a media specialist at Emerson when it was a middle school for 25 years. Our children are graduates of Lakewood High School. My topic. At a recent congressional hearing, Dr. Kevin Donovan of Georgetown University started his testimony with the statement, medicine is a moral issue. That is, moral as good, decent, and honest. Has the proceedings between Lakewood and the clinic been decent or honest? A department of the clinic schemed behind closed doors to dismantle our hospital. The officials of our city allowed the lease to be broken without considering the consequences of their action. As the current urgent care now offered as emergency service, is the current urgent care now offered as emergency service, serving the citizens who counted on Lakewood Hospital for care of all emergencies? How does anyone know what can and cannot be done or handled by the current staff? We've had no communication. There has been delayed medical care, lost lives, and questions about where to go for real care. Is it decent to saddle someone with the cost of 2 ambulance rides, the first to Lakewood Hospital, the second to Fairview, or some other hospital? Is it honest to publish that the current emergency room continues the excellent care previously found at Lakewood Hospital, where a physician would have been in the building? I'm pleased to hear that the gentleman ahead of us had very good care there. Is it truthful to maintain that service continues as before? It doesn't seem to be. Lakewood deserves an acute care facility. Lakewood needs a hospital which covers all medical needs of the community. You and other officials, along with the clinic, have conspired to eliminate quality medical service for Lakewood citizens. In closing, I want to say a little bit about the ambulance chase. I was looking online for information about the ambulance chase to see what it was and where and who benefits and who's supporting it. I was very dismayed to see that when I finally found something about the ambulance chase, it was under Lakewood Hospital Foundation /CCF. Under the clinic? Who knows? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker this evening is Kevin Young.
You got me early today. I'm Kevin Young. I live at 1598 Elber Avenue. I thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. Last week was the second time that I asked council to send a direct mail piece to city residents, making it clear to them that our city's ER is not a place to go when someone is having a heart attack, a stroke, or any number of other serious illnesses. The first time, there were maybe 10 people in the chamber. There weren't a lot of people here. I think I was one of maybe only 2 people who actually spoke on the hospital. There were no TV cameras. There wasn't a big crowd here. It was a perfect opportunity to take action on a mailer and kind of do it under the radar. And that's the way I wanted it to be. Last week, the room was much fuller. I gave my speech and I was accused of political grandstanding, when in fact, just like the first time, I was advocating for action that will save lives. Last week, I pointed to a well-researched, balanced article by Matt Coons that represented all the facts about what is and what is not an ER, and what somebody should go to, which ER somebody should go to in the event that they're having a heart attack, a stroke, or some other serious occurrence. The article referenced was in USA Today, a very credible newspaper, I think you'll agree. Though Matt Coons' article was in the Lakewood Observer, the article out of hand was discredited by Chief Gilman, who apparently had not read the article. It was discredited because he said it was in the Lakewood Observer, and who would give any credence to anything that was in Lakewood Observer. Councilperson Marks commented that in an emergency, people should call an EMS vehicle. Then that should be included, if that's the case, then maybe that should be included in the mailer that I'm speaking about, along with the shortcomings of the so-called ER that we have here in our community. You might also want to say that Lakewood is making plans for more EMS vehicles to add to its fleet, since so many of the vehicles that we have are wrapped up taking patients to faraway hospitals. I think we're probably going to need more EMS vehicles. I get the distinct impression that city officials rely solely on what they've been told by Cleveland Clinic officials and by the few people who have big money interest in seeing that our hospital is destroyed. I get the distinct impression that from the very beginning, these moneyed people behind the scenes continually discredit every important point that has been brought up in this chamber on why the hospital should remain open. When it was brought to light that Metro had a viable offer to keep the hospital open, you should have had a clue that there was something fishy going on in this whole deal. The Metro proposal, as some of you may recall, was hidden, kept out of sight until public requests were made to bring it to light. I don't want to think that this council shrinks to fit. And I don't want to think that this council thinks our citizens should shrink to fit. even when lives are at stake. I hope that this is not the case with my request to send out a direct mailer. This is the time that you tear down the walls built between us and engage us and look at what has been presented to you. The Cleveland Clinic website clearly states that if you are having a heart attack, a stroke, or any number of other serious issues, you need to get to a full-service hospital. Dr. Kilroy, who has saved many, many lives, concurs with what the clinic says. It's time for this council to take action. Do a direct mailer. And while you are at it, increase the number of EMS vehicles and personnel that we have in our community. Be heroes, all of you. The very lives of the citizens that you serve depend upon it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, first off, Mr. Kunz's article made a statement that the patient died while being transported from Lakewood ER to another hospital in an ambulance. If he had bothered to fact check it with public records that are available, he would have found that this statement was untrue. The public records reflected what really happened to that patient. We are not adding an ambulance. Our run volume today requires 2.1 ambulances. We staff 3 24/7. Close to 100 days a year, we staff 4. We are adding another ambulance, which just goes along with the vehicle replacement plan that we've had in place since we merged fire and EMS in '99. We have a standardized plan to replace our vehicles, and we're sticking to that plan. That's the way we've handled it since '99.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilman Bullock.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, for the time. And nice to hear from you, Mr. Coons, and Mr. Young. And I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name of the previous speaker. But I'll be just happy to answer 2 quick things. First, the Lakewood ambulance chase. I'm supporting it. I'll be running it. Hopefully, I will be in good enough shape to have a respectable 5K time, because I'm not in shape right now. I encourage everyone, including my council colleagues, a couple will be supporting it. The beneficiary of the charitable run will be Lakewood Hospital Foundation. That is, of course, a different and independent entity from the Lakewood Hospital Association. The Lakewood Hospital Foundation for years has been supporting charity care for healthcare service delivery of all kinds to a range of people. As I understand, in recent years, diabetes has been a major focus. That'll continue to be a major focus, as I understand, although the Lakewood Hospital Foundation Board will be the ones that determine how that all plays out. Of note, diabetes care and prevention and management is significantly an outpatient function, even in the years while we've had the benefits of an inpatient Lakewood Hospital facility. So that can and should and ought to continue. And as we've heard from Mayor Summers in the Committee of the Whole preliminary discussion tonight, the Lakewood Hospital Foundation itself will be going through a discernment process and a realignment of its mission on parallel track. One of the questions I'm interested to understand myself in the next 12 months is whether or not the parallel work of Lakewood Hospital Foundation might overlap with or coincide with or be coordinated with or combined with, in a direct sense, the work of the new Lakewood Community Health Foundation. All these are public questions that we can look at going forward. But the point is that Lakewood Hospital Foundation does good work. It'll continue to do good work, and it continues to merit our support. So I'll be supporting it, and hopefully not embarrassing myself with my running performance. Secondly, actually, I'm forgetting my point, Mr. Young. I wanted to respond to one thing you were saying. It escapes me, so maybe the next time I'll do it. Thanks.
Our next speaker is Brian Essie.
Thank you. Brian Essie, 15306 Edgewater Drive. I appreciate Mrs. Coleman's remarks. I was a student of Bill Coleman in biology class almost 4 years ago. He was a great, great professor, and I'll never forget my time with him. I also appreciate Mr. Graham's comments about the First Amendment, and I think that I'm very concerned with the way things are going here in this body, and I think Mrs. Coleman's comments and Mr. Young's comments about us speaking to one another are are important. This is a public comment section, not a public flogging section. I understand the need of the council and the administration to defend themselves, but it seems as though this give and take is really getting the last word in. And I just wanted to note my objection, because the First Amendment says, or the case law under it, I believe, says that when you give us an opportunity to speak, you cannot regulate the content and interrupt because you don't like what is being said. So having said that, I want to talk a little bit about the bid steering process. But before I do, I want to add another comment about transparency and Mr. Summers' comments. I missed the cow meeting, but I think it should be transparent. If we have LHA, according to the master agreement, deciding on where this money is going to be spent in conjunction with the city, we ought to know who LHA is. And I would like a public disclosure of who's resigned from LHA that served the city, such as Mr. Litton, Mr. Bullock, Ms. Madigan, and possibly even Mayor Summers. Who's left on the LHA board that was going to be deciding along with the city who is going to get that money? So, without further ado, I will go into the somewhat disjointed but somewhat prepared statements I've made about the bid steering process. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, we talked about a document, the preliminary memorandum, and the law director said I was cherry picking. In that paragraph that I read from, there were 10 sentences, 8 references or 7 references to the city, 1 to the hospital association. And I've written about this on the Lakewood Observer, and very clearly it was the city that would have the sole discretion per the preliminary memorandum to decide who would get an RFP. And that seemed to be the mayor and or Mr. Bullock and Ms. Madigan. But since the mayor was in charge of step 2, it would have, and subsidient per various documents and testimony, it would appear to me that the mayor had control of the bid process. That's a circumstantial observation, but that's a conclusion I come to. Likewise, part of the bid process, there was the Lakewood data book that I got in public records requests asking for it because it was listed as a document that Huron had seen. And that document as well, referenced the city's leadership asking for this. It mentioned in that data book, and this data book was given to the people that did respond and wanted an RFP. And the data book also said, through this process, the city is only interested in proposals which include but are not necessarily limited to operating a hospital as an inpatient facility with substantially similar services as those currently offered today and for a period of not less than 20 years. Once again, this narrative that is the inpatient volume, that the status quo was unsustainable, was the only thing that these others besides the clinic were allowed to bid on. And the clinic's bid proposal, which I've read from before, made it very clear that they were bidding on discontinuation of the inpatient process. Nobody else was allowed to bid on what the clinic bid on, and the other folks were supposed to bid on keeping the hospital substantially same services for 20 years. Now, the Metro proposal also that was responded to on page 27 mentioned that they were, if the proposal was not acceptable, it said they would be interested in the possibility of a long-term lease. This is the first proposal in May of 2014. They also said Metro is open to scenarios in which Metro Health alternatively enters into a corporate member, into a long-term operating agreement replacing the Cleveland Clinic as the corporate member of Lakewood Hospital Association and other legal structures, including affiliation, merger, sale, or whatever. Mayor Summers has testified that the hospital was not for sale. He said, we were not selling this hospital, which is perplexing given these documents.
Mr. Essie, I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there for tonight. Thanks very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Judy Gillespie.
I was able to recall the one thing I wanted to say, Mr. Young. I simply wanted to say I think it's a laudable point to encourage more clear communications from the city to the residents about everything involved in the hospital transformation plan. to do so isn't simply a turn it around in 24 hours kind of suggestion or proposal or request. Perhaps it's something the city can do. I think the content of such a thing regarding the emergency room is very simple. We can do it in a phrase. If you're having an emergency, call 911. Nobody should try to self-diagnose. That is what will save lives. Call 911. Secondly, Mr. Essie, I think we're on the same page. You make a laudable call for, as always, for transparency and open records in government. We can and should and do live up to those standards, and we'll continue to do so. So we're on the same page in that regard. Thanks.
Thanks. Ms. Gillespie.
Hi, my name is Judy Gillespie, 23003 Chandler's Lane. I'm a former 46-year resident of Lakewood. I would like to bring your focus on the Lakewood Observer full page article. It's not even an article. It says at the very top it's an advertisement. Okay, so we know advertisements don't have to be truthful. They can misquote prices. They can tell you the garments aren't available or whatever. But this is an advertisement, and it seems to focus on a statement about most emergencies do not require hospital admission, but patients requiring inpatient care can be transported to the closest, most appropriate hospital. So their words, most emergencies, is like a flat statement. So I guess I could say most of the people in this room are probably smokers. Now, I don't know if half of you people are smokers or not, but you know what? I can make that statement just like they can make it in here, that most emergencies are blah, 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 blah. So because it's an advertisement, it also lists some of the conditions that could be included in care at the ER. They choose to call it ER in initials now, but it's supposed to be emergency department. And they point out fractures, strains, and sprains. Well, don't you think that it could be some fractures? I mean, they make the statement of fractures. What if you have a kid that gets hit by a car and he's got a bone sticking out of his leg? He can't come here for that, okay? So it's like this kind of advertisement is false and misleading and deceptive. And I just think they go on to a paragraph up here on the top right, which indicates construction of a new family health center with a state-of-the-art emergency department is planned to begin, blah, 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 blah. They don't say emergency freestanding, they just call it an emergency department. Again, they're misinforming the public. And I think it's unfortunate, even down here, because I worked at Lakewood Hospital 15 years, they have Cleveland Clinic Lakewood Emergency Department, 14519 Detroit. That was always the address for Lakewood Hospital in Lakewood, Ohio, 44107, okay? Now, the emergency picture that they have is on Marlowe. So what happens if you have somebody coming to the emergency room and they go to 14519 Bell Avenue and it's not there? It's really on Marlowe Avenue, which I think is very strange that they would indicate that. And as well as they say at the bottom of their advertisement, Cleveland Clinic offers same-day appointments. Well, I bet half the people behind me could attest to the fact that that's not a true statement. My concern is, in my closing tonight, that I would like to, again, bring up to you. I've talked to you about the definition of trust and of honor and different things. I would now like to use the new words for you to think about as the City of Lakewood Council with an elected mayor in a very powerful leadership position, the definition of a Trojan horse, which I'm using as a noun, not an action, but a noun. From Greek mythology, a hollow wooden statue of a horse in which the Greeks concealed themselves in order to enter Troy. Or, more up to date, a person or thing intended secretly to undermine or bring about the downfall of an enemy or an opponent. Someone or something intended to defeat or subvert from within, usually by deceptive means. A simple definition that I found of a Trojan horse: someone or something that is used to hide what is true and real in order to trick or harm an enemy.
My source is Merriam-Webster.com dictionary. Just wanted to point that out to you, that I have a really bad feeling when I got tuned onto this Trojan horse concept, that a lot of what is going on here is very impaired care, information that's not true on your website. It sounds pretty deceptive to me, and I think that's unfortunate that a city as wonderful as Lakewood can have that connotation connected to their government management. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Gilman. Mr. Chair, even before Lakewood Hospital closed the inpatient rooms, we wouldn't have taken a pediatric trauma there. We would have taken it to either Fairview, but most likely to Metro or to Rainbow Babies and Children's. Those are the pediatric, Metro and Rainbow Baby and Children's are the pediatric trauma centers. It is an ER. The address for the ER has always been 14519. In the 30+ years that I've worked for Lakewood, I've never known there to be a entrance off of Detroit. It's always been off of Bell or Marlow. The entrance is on the back side of the hospital. It always has been. It hasn't changed. Most of the patients that Lakewood Fire Department transport to the hospital are not admitted to the hospital. We still take close to 60% of our patients to the Lakewood ER.
Thank you. I appreciate those clarifications. Nancy Vaughn is our next speaker.
Nancy Vaughn, 14909 Clifton. I am Norman Zwanich. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jean McKay.
Good evening. Jean McKay, 13428 Lake Avenue. Members of council, at our last council meeting, Kevin Young addressed the fact that the current Lakewood Emergency Room is not a true emergency room since it is no longer attached to a full-service hospital. I can tell you that in speaking with hundreds of residents while gathering referendum signatures, there were many people who did not realize or understand how the emergency room had changed or what was going on with the hospital in general. Not everyone in our community can pay attention. Therefore, it's a moral obligation and duty of this city and council, since most of you voted to remove hospital services, to act responsibly now and properly inform the residents about when to use a standalone ER and when to go directly to a full-service hospital. At the last council meeting, Councilwoman Marks responded to Mr. Young's story of his mother driving his father to the emergency room, stating that we have great EMS services in Lakewood and no one should drive to the emergency room if having a heart attack or stroke. The fact is, not everyone calls emergency services when they or a loved one is feeling ill. Here's a case in point. A few years ago, my neighbor and yours, Mayor, a well-educated, very savvy, professional gentleman in his 80s, drove himself to Lakewood Hospital, parked his car in the parking garage after hitting a few things along the way, and miraculously walked himself into the ER while he was having a stroke. He had neighbors all around him he could have called, EMS a phone call away. However, that evening he chose to take himself to the hospital, and he told me later that he was not feeling that bad. This story illustrates that people still do choose to go to the emergency room on their own. For whatever reason, whether it be an unwanted EMS fee, or they just are not feeling that bad, to suggest it's common practice to call EMS in such cases, as my neighbor and Mr. Young's story clearly illustrates, it's not reality. Ms. Marks also suggested that Mr. Young write a letter to the Lakewood Observer to let people know they should call EMS services if they feel they are having a stroke, a heart attack, or other emergency. The moral obligation to inform the residents clearly rests with this administration and council, who chose to close the hospital and diminish the ER, not Mr. Young. Mr. Bullock last meeting accused Mr. Young of grandstanding for raising this important issue and informing council of a recent fatality that may have been avoided had a person gone to a full-service hospital. I totally disagree with Mr. Bullock's assertion. In the words of Martin Luther King Jr., our lives begin to end the moment we become silent about things that matter. In order to avoid any future disasters that may result from this lack of knowledge, isn't it worth a simple notice mailed out to all residents clearly defining what conditions can and cannot be handled at the current Lakewood Emergency Room? I respectfully request you let the people know. It could save someone's life. And one more thing. The Downtown District wayfinding sign located at the corner of Bunce and Detroit when you're heading north says hospital with an arrow pointing west. Since we no longer have a hospital, shouldn't that sign be removed? Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to take this opportunity to clarify, Mr. Bullock has taken the opportunity to clarify. When having a life-threatening emergency situation, it is absolutely imperative that you call 911. And I understand that not everyone does that, but let me tell you, when you do that, not only are you taking your own life in your hands, but you're also jeopardizing the health and well-being and safety of everyone else in this community. Because if you're driving and you're speeding or running a red light, as you might be inclined to do when in a life-threatening emergency kind of situation, your vehicle does not have emergent lights or sirens. And furthermore, if you do lose consciousness, as this gentleman did, and strike objects on the way to the hospital, that object could easily be a pedestrian or another vehicle. And it is absolutely imperative, not only for your personal health and well-being, but for the safety of others, that you call 911. Chief Gilman.
Put that in the letter.
Mr. Chair, since I started the EMS business back in the 70s, it's always been the recommendation of American Heart to call 911 for having chest pain. And the American Heart has subsequently expanded to stroke. When it comes to dealing with a stroke at Lakewood Hospital, the same doctor who diagnosed the stroke at Fairview, Hillcrest, Lutheran, or South Point is the same doctor who's going to diagnose the stroke for a patient at Lakewood ER. He's going to recommend a course of treatment. The course of treatment at Lakewood, it may be TPA, it may be, depending on the type of stroke, what type of treatment is needed. If it's a bleeding stroke, the patient from Fairview, the patient from Lakewood, the patient from Hillcrest, Lutheran, or South Point, in all likelihood is going to be transferred down to the clinic in Cleveland. If it's a clot, the patient will be treated with TPA, then transported to a facility with inpatient beds, or the patient may be transferred down there to have the clinic, to Metro, or to university to have the clot removed. So it doesn't matter which hospital you're going to. You're going to get the same doctor diagnosing the stroke through telemedicine. The treatment is going to be started on that patient immediately, just like they would in any ER as part of the clinic system, and then they're going to be transported to the appropriate facility based on the type of stroke it is, where they receive the best treatment.
Thank you. And also, as an additional note, I would add that in, I think, a relatively short period of time, we should have the clinic's mobile stroke unit coming online for service in Lakewood, which, again, is an incredibly fast response when you consider that they'll meet you where you are. Councilwoman Marks.
Thanks, Mr. President. I'd like to make a couple comments about comments that I made. I work in healthcare. Best practices in healthcare, if you call your physician's office or call anywhere in healthcare and you don't get a live person, they'll tell you if it's an emergency, call 911 or go to the nearest emergency department. Secondly, the emergency department that exists now in the old Lakewood Hospital building is a Medicare-approved emergency department. The only people who don't believe it's an emergency department are Save Lakewood Hospital people. And you people, no.
Excuse me.
Yes, that is
we'll
correct.
Have order here.
It is a Medicare-approved emergency department. You can't just call yourself an emergency department and build insurance companies for services that are provided in an emergency department. It's a different level of care. It meets the standard of care. I don't know where you're getting your information that it's an urgent care, that it is not. It is a freestanding emergency department. Medicare recognizes it as such. Those of you who are out in the public saying it's not an emergency department are doing a disservice to the citizens in Lakewood who feel they can't go there for a heart attack or stroke, because they can. They will be administered, as Chief Gilman said, the appropriate care and taken to the appropriate facility to treat their condition. Any healthcare facility you call will tell you, if they're not there, call 911 or go to the nearest emergency department. It doesn't tell you go to the nearest emergency department attached to a hospital. An emergency department isn't an emergency department. So who's giving you that information that it's not? I would like to know so I could clarify it. No, they are not telling you. I think you're reading what you want to read into that.
The mailer that's on your desk says
Excuse me.
Read it.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ed Graham.
Preventative medicine has been one of the topics here. I would make a suggestion that the city of Lakewood could do some preventative medical things by having the water fountains have enough water pressure so people don't have to put their mouth on the faucet in order to get a drink. That would be a good start there. What I would like to address is the issue of Norman Zwanich, a 78-year-old veteran who recently died being transported from Lakewood Hospital to St. John West Shore. His event started when one of his two friends who check in on him to see that he's doing all right made a call on him that morning or late morning and found that he couldn't get into the apartment and had to go and get a key from the downstairs people so he could get in, and found Norman on the floor, unable to get up himself, and was able to check his blood pressure and found it was only 47/33, and wound up doing what everybody here is saying to do. We called 911, and the EMS showed up around 3. It was by the time he convinced Norman that he needed to go to the hospital and call, it was around 3 o'clock when EMS was able to get there, and spent about 20 minutes, he said, when they put him in the ambulance before they hit the road to the hospital, and that he arrived at the hospital, and the hospital wouldn't let him go in with Norman to be able to check on him. So he was escorted out by security, and about 9 o'clock he was called by the hospital to let him know that Norman was being taken to St. John West Shore by Martin's ambulance. Another extra expense that Norman personally won't be able to pay. The people at St. John West Shore made a valiant effort, he said, to try and resuscitate him, but he was probably dead by the time he was taken out of the ambulance. So, although the fire chief says there's more to that, that's it. He went to the emergency room for help. They weren't able to provide him the help he needed, and he was taken to another hospital, but it was too late. And so, if one can get to a hospital when he has a heart condition and he's not able to receive full care, time makes a difference, as the signs in the Lakewood Hospital would say on their sign in there that shows various messages. So that's the whole story. There isn't more to it. Thank you.
Chief Gilman, the rest of the story, please.
He did not die in the ambulance. He was treated at Lakewood Hospital where he was stabilized. The mobile intensive care unit from Donald Martin's was called to transfer him because of some of the medications he had been placed on. He was the admission to St. John's West Shore was arranged by his personal physician. He was transferred to St. John's West Shore and admitted to the ICU. And if you check on the public records available through the medical examiner's office, his death occurred hours after being admitted to the ICU at St. John's West Shore.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. Our next speaker is Tom Monahan.
Good evening, Tom Monahan, 1487 Waterbury. Sorry I lived up here. I thought when the transformation of the hospital that we're all become very healthy, but I seem to be slipping very rapidly. My body seems to be falling apart. I want to talk about a couple of things tonight. And one of them is there was a policeman here in Lakewood about 20 years ago, I think, Chief Malley, Steve Meskin. Steve got into a tussle, as I understand, with somebody at the booking desk in the wee hours of the morning and suffered a massive heart attack. And he was taken up to Lakewood Hospital by the EMS guys. And I was talking to Steve today on another matter, and he brought that up, and he said that if it wasn't for the hospital being attached, he wouldn't be here today. So I want to also point out and ask you to really consider sending out this warning to the people and talking about they will have a better chance of going to a full-service hospital than to the local ER. And that can be done very simply, Mayor, by putting a notice into the water bills. Won't cost you very much, and probably one of the few truthful things that we're going to hit in the water bill. I also want to talk about, Chief mentioned that they're going to get another squad. What do those cost, about $250,000? Mr. Chairman?
Chief, $222,000.
Right.
That's about $30,000 less than the last one we purchased.
Thank you.
It would have been a good deal as part of your negotiating skill, Mayor, Mr. Butler, Mr. Bullock, with the hospital, that you would have negotiated with the clinic to replace our squads for a number of years and not costing the city any money. That's what I would have done with the clinic before I let them out of here. I would have wrung their neck. Unfortunately, your negotiating skills are a lot different than mine. And Ms. Marks, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I thought your comments to Kevin Young 2 weeks ago was really insensitive. I mean, Kevin's parents didn't even live in this area, as I understand, at the time. And for her to take her husband into the hospital in a car, I imagine it was a tremendously traumatic situation. And I know of a number of people that have gone to different hospitals. I took a couple of my kids over to Fairview many years ago. They ran into each other in the house and were bleeding mightily. So since that was the pediatric section, I grabbed them up and brought them over there, and happened to run into the police inspector for the district. He said, "I didn't know you, Monahan. I charge you with child abuse." So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker tonight is Pam Watula.
Judy has something that I think the council might have
Would you check on that to make sure? And maybe there are some extras for others. I'm Pam Watula, 11813 Clifton Boulevard. I think maybe the other folks don't have it. First of all, yay rah Lakewood, top 35, right? Suburbs, we won an award, we're really good. Nobody's smiling about that? I thought it was great. And Mayor, I wanted to say I missed you at listening to Lakewood, but the butler did it, and he did a very good job. So we're sorry that we missed you last week at the Women's Pavilion. I do want to talk, of course, about this emergency room. I want to read, well, first of all, I want to say the master agreement, the city, LHA, Cleveland Clinic, all promised that the emergency room would be the same or better than what it was on December 21st, 2015. And that cannot be so. The moment you closed the hospital, the emergency room changed. The second it closed, there was a less depth of care, and the promise was hollow. The emergency room was diminished. I want to read you the front of Cleveland Clinic Emergency, Urgent, and Express Care Clinic. This is right off their website. When emergencies happen, you can feel confident knowing that the world-class care of Cleveland Clinic is nearby. With convenient locations, advanced technology, and a wide range of medical expertise, we offer specialized treatment for everything from illness to critical injuries. Our main campus and community hospital emergency departments treat patients quickly and efficiently, featuring a new streamlined process that reduces wait times. Should you need to be admitted, you are only steps away from our hospital inpatient care and the Cleveland Clinic specialty services. Cleveland Clinic Urgent Care and Express Care Clinics provide prompt treatment for minor illnesses and injuries. No appointments are necessary, and walk-ins are welcome. That's it. There is no mention about freestanding emergency departments. There is no gloating. There is no telling you how wonderful a freestanding emergency department is, because it's not the same. I would like you to look at this. I'd like to thank you, Steve Eggert. This is what just came out to citizens, the residents of Lakewood, just a couple of days ago. Please look very carefully. The asterisk at the bottom denotes locations with emergency department. There are only 3. This is 2 days ago this postcard went out by the Cleveland Clinic. The only places that have an asterisk are Fairview Hospital, Lutheran Hospital, and Cleveland Clinic main campus. Not even Avon. No Lakewood. They are not advertising in this flyer, in this postcard, an emergency department at Lakewood. This is the only truthful thing I've seen come out. And the last thing I'd like to say is 14519 is the address. Detroit is how the Cleveland Clinic is advertising Lakewood and its emergency area. We do not have the same emergency care that we had December 21st, 2015. The master agreement is not truthful. And I want to say, in 2008, I had heart failure. I didn't know I was having it. I packed my bags and took a taxi to Lakewood Hospital emergency room. Not everybody knows, Mr. O'Leary, that what they have is earth-shattering or death-defying. And so sometimes we just want to be ready when we get there. Took care of all my business, packed my bags, took a taxi. So, because I wasn't feeling good. That's it. Thank you very much.
Nice to hear from you. I'm not familiar with the mailers you're sharing, but I'll be happy to follow up. The one that you have a copy of here, it does seem erroneous to have an asterisk by some locations and not by others. So I'd actually disagree that it's an honest or accurate statement. It's inaccurate. I'll be happy to follow up, but I'm not familiar with what these communications are. So I'll have to.
They're not advertising freestanding in here for a reason. because it's just not the
Could be. Yeah, I mean, that's conjecture, to be frank. I do want to also follow up with on one of the, so there's an argument or a call from a number of speakers tonight for clearer mailers from the city to the residents.
Yes.
So let me just speak to, give my 2 bits on that one. I think clarity is needed, perhaps from the city, or perhaps from the clinic, or perhaps from both, because what's appropriate here are clear and accurate medical instructions. There's an objectively correct answer to this. I don't claim to be the person with the medical credentials to provide that correct answer, but we can get it, and frankly, it's the director of the Lakewood Emergency Department who ought to give it. It's very simple to do. It may not be as simple to print and arrange and fund and do the logistics of getting out a mailer, but that's also possible to do. But what I'm going to suggest to you is that the text of what that says isn't a matter for us in this room to vote on or wordsmith by committee. It's going to be something that's medically clear and appropriate, and it's just as simple. So I don't know that the group who's calling for such a mailer is going to be happy with the wording that comes out of it. I'll just point that out now, because I don't think that what you're opining about is going to line up with what the emergency physicians are going to prescribe as the proper instructions.
Thank you.
That's just a guess, I could be wrong.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Steve Lamantia. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Steve Lamantia. I live at 2164 Arthur Avenue. And I wanted to make a couple comments because I was disturbed by some of the comments that were made at the last meeting. Some of them have been continued at this meeting. But one of them I was very pleased with, hearing that we're working quickly to get the Health Wellness Foundation up and running. And I wanted to make a suggestion as far as that's concerned. I think at the end of last year, we had a meeting that was a community forum that Director Drew Siley held to get input from the community regarding what we would do with the site of Lakewood Hospital if it was decided that Lakewood Hospital was going to be no more. I'm suggesting that perhaps because we have so many community needs in healthcare, that perhaps we have a community forum, we invite the public in to get a jump start for this Community Wellness Foundation to give community ideas as to what we can do to move Lakewood forward regarding healthcare. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is whether or not we're asking the right questions. I was very moved by the comments Mr. Young telling the story about an empty chair in the holiday, but part of my background is I spent 45 years as a hospital pharmacist. 8 of those years was an intensive care emergency room pharmacist at Hillcrest Hospital. So I've seen a lot of the successes and the failures and the tragedies in emergency rooms. Most important thing, if someone has a life-threatening illness, and I'm not a physician, and if you go on a website from the John Hopkins, the Mayo Clinic, what is it going to tell you to do? Call 911. What is the reason for that? And Mr. Gilman, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand that if the body goes without oxygen for 4 minutes, the brain starts dying. Also, if you call an EMS person and they can get to your place, what are they going to do? First thing, they're going to assess the situation, see what's needed. If they have to establish an airway to get somebody breathing, they get that done immediately. If they are there, they'll start an IV, they'll obtain IV admixture, IV access, so they can give needed medications. You mentioned telemetry. They're in contact with a base station at a hospital that can tell them, this patient has an arrhythmia. You can give them this medication and stop that arrhythmia right then and there. You can save lives. That's why you need to do that. Time, we've all heard and we all understand it. Time is brain, time is heart muscle, time is someone's life. You may feel very good trying to take someone to the hospital, but if you know that you have a life-threatening situation, you have to call 911. That's the proper thing to do. Second question I wanted to ask is, are we doing enough to help ourselves, to protect ourselves, protect our community members? I know that we're not supposed to ask questions here, but I'd like to ask a few questions, if I may, of the group here. How many people have had CPR training in the last year? How many people know what the FAST acronym is? Who knows where the nearest AED device is?
In this building?
There is one in this building, right? Who knows how to use one? Who has baby aspirin at home?
Mr. Lamantia, I'm sorry. I do need you to direct your comments to the chair. You're welcome to direct those questions at me. I'm not saying that I'll answer them, but...
Do you know how to do the Heimlich maneuver? Do you know how to do it on a child? On an infant? Has everybody have you had your flu shot? And you're not 65, so have you had a pneumonia? If you were 65, you think you'd have a pneumonia shot? Actually, both of them? These are basic things to help to keep us out of hospitals, to help us to help ourselves. If you're standing in line at the grocery store, or you're at home and a friend has a sudden cardiac arrest, what are you going to do? You're going to watch that person turn blue and die? Are you going to try and throw them in a car and bring them to a hospital? Are you going to call EMS and are they going to be there within 4 minutes? The point I'm trying to make is while we're debating so many different issues, one of the issues we have to debate is, or we have to realize is, are we doing enough for ourselves, for the first people we love, to make sure that things are being taken care of appropriately? We can't rely on an emergency room, 100% of our needs. We can't rely on Fairview Hospital, whatever.
I'm sorry, you're up against the 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
We're in the process of organizing CPR training for all city employees, which will also include AED use. The city currently has 22 public access AEDs, which if you download the PulsePoint app that's available, the PulsePoint app, you hit it, it will tell you where the closest AED is located in the city. It also provides you with instructions on CPR. So that app is available, and it's been put out several times that app is available. We're also looking to try and expand our public AED access program. So there are AEDs in this building, there are AEDs at the track at Lakewood High School. Like I said, there are 22 over, next there are 22 AEDs located throughout the city that the fire department maintains.
Great, thank you, I appreciate that. And just to clarify again, the name of that app is PulsePoint. Thank you. Our final speaker for this evening is Steve Eggert.
Hi, I'm Captain Steve Eggert. I live at 902 Beach Road over the lagoon. Does everybody have the flyer that I went to great lengths to print and highlight? I gave it to the clerk over here.
Yes.
There's highlight that one. And are the highlights on there? Does everybody have that, including Cindy Marks? You do have it. Good. Let's start with the good news. A lot of credit should go to this council and this mayor, this police chief, and this fire chief in Lakewood. Fire departments are good or excellent. The schools are good and excellent. Refuse and recycling is excellent. Streets are in good condition. Pop and mom stores are competing well with the competition in other cities here in Lakewood. On Madison and Detroit, you get credit for it. The libraries are excellent. They're not good news. A huge mistake has happened to Lakewood Hospital. Even with the unconscionable Cleveland Clinic administrative fees and money-making departments being stripped out by Cleveland Clinic, the cash flow at Lakewood Hospital was very positive to the tune of millions of dollars. These facts came from onelakewood.com, your website. Again, thanks for the good and great that's in this city. Many in this room have said there's a full-service ER at Lakewood Hospital. Did you see the flyer? Did you read it? Cindy Marks. This very recent mailer from Cleveland Clinic states otherwise. It says from Cleveland Clinic. I didn't print it. It's from Cleveland Clinic. Arrived at many addresses here in Lakewood. What does it state? Oh, we're not allowed to ask questions. The asterisk on the bottom that I've highlighted on all of them, I hope every single one of you have these mailers. The asterisk denotes with emergency department. According to this very recent mailer from Cleveland Clinic, there are only 2 ERs on the west side of Cleveland. Fairview, which is on overload, and Lutheran. The sooner this huge mistake is corrected, the better for all of us. Let's face the music. A mistake, an honest mistake has been made. I believe it's an honest mistake that's been made. Let's correct the mistake and get our hospital back. We need a hospital. It saves lives, saves jobs, saves a lot of good. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Councilwoman Marks.
I would just like to clarify that this document you gave us, if you read the description, it says Fairview Hospital with an asterisk and Lutheran Hospital with an asterisk, and it just denotes that they have emergency departments. That's all it states. Do I believe if I had an emergency and I called 911 and I was not being insensitive to Kevin Young and his family's situation, my comment to him was, call 911. I believe that I do a service to all the people I care about and the people in my community. If you feel you have a medical emergency, call 911. They are going to best determine what your needs are. So I'm not going to argue. You believe what you want to believe. I work in healthcare. I believe what I want to believe. And I believe that I am doing the best job for this community. And I am not creating falsifications to people in the community saying that that is not an emergency department where they cannot get care. That is absolutely inappropriate for you to be spreading that rumor to the community. It is an emergency department. It is better than getting in a car and driving. Where are you going to go? Where are you going to go?
It's very simple. You are wrong and we are right.
Oh, yeah.
It's very simple.
Excuse
Look
me, sir.
at the document that I passed
Excuse
out.
me, sir.
Excuse me, sir.
No.
Look at the document.
No,
What's in writing?
You will be
Read it.
seated. Thank you. Any announcements from the administration?
Mr. Chair, just quickly, regarding this document, I do believe we ought to seek some clarification on why there isn't an asterisk next to Lakewood, because there is clearly an emergency department there. I just went to the Cleveland Clinic website now, and it clearly lists that within 5 miles of 44107, there are 2 emergency departments, Lakewood and Fairview. So, there's a discrepancy there between that flyer and what's on the Cleveland Clinic website. So I'm happy to, or if the administration would like me to.
Thanks for
Here why the flyer is incorrect.
Yeah, thanks for bringing up that point.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Chief Gilman.
The only procedure that is not being performed in the Lakewood Emergency Room today that was performed last December is admitting patients to the inpatient beds at Lakewood Hospital. Every other procedure they were doing last December can still be done in the Lakewood ER. The number of patients they're seeing is exceeding what their expectations were. The numbers of patients they're seeing here exceed what are seen in Brunswick on a daily basis and are close to what are being seen at Twinsburg. The system is working. It has a full service ER. It is more than an urgent care. And as I said, the only thing that cannot be done there today, that was done there last December, is admitting a patient to an inpatient bed at Lakewood Hospital.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Any other announcements from the administration this evening? Hearing none. Any other announcements from council? I would note that as it will occur before our next meeting, As was noted earlier in the meeting, Saturday, April 30th is the Lakewood cleanup organized by Keep Lakewood Beautiful. I encourage full participation so that we can continue to enjoy the lovely city that we all do. Any other business? Hearing none, move to adjourn. We are adjourned. Thanks.